Hello. In this video, we're going to go through Learning Target 8.2.3 and 8.2.4, which is on sector area and arc length. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Learning Target 8.2.3. And even though these are different learning targets, you'll see why they are easy to do together. They both are portions of an entire circle. So sector area is a piece, like a slice of the pie, and arc length is a chunk of the circumference. So we're going to start with the area of a sector. And to find both of these, we're basically figuring out like what portion of the circle we're looking at, and then taking that portion of the entire area. So to find the area of a sector, you start with the area of a circle formula, pi r squared, but then you multiply by the portion that you have, which is the angle over 360. And remember, this symbol is called theta. That is just an angle. So drawing a quick picture, we have our circle, and then we basically want to draw like a pie slice. So draw a dot in the center, draw a pie slice. One of these sides is labeled by the radius, and then we have the angle, which is theta. And instead of finding the entire area of the circle, we want to find the area of this piece. And I want to make a little note here that theta can be inside, which is what it is now, or outside of the circle. So it can be given here or it can be given here. They denote the same measure. So I'm going to go through an example. So we want to find the area of sector HGJ, and we have a circle given to us. And there we are. So we want to find sector HGJ, which is this slice of pie. And we want to use our area of a sector formula, basically the area of a circle multiplied by the chunk that we have. So we're going to start with just pi r squared. I'm actually going to do this in a different color. So we have pi, and then my r, my radius is 12. And then we want to do our fraction with our angle. So our angle is 131 over 360. And you can type that in exactly as it is, the entire thing, into your calculator. So I'm going to type in pi 12 squared. And then in parentheses, if you have a fraction button, you can use that. Otherwise, you can just do 131 divided by 360. And we get 164.6. And this is area, so we're going to do meters squared. And that's it for area of a sector. You basically are just finding the entire area, which is this pi r squared part, and then multiplying it by the chunk of this circle that you have. The only other thing I want to mention is that 131 was inside the circle here, but it could also be given just like on the outside right here, and you would use that the same exact way. So now let's look at 824. Very similar, but instead of area, we're now looking at circumference. So 824 is about arc length. And you'll notice that the formulas for arc length and area of a sector are super similar. For arc length, this is a portion of the circumference. And so we're going to start with the circumference formula, 2 pi r, and then multiply by the angle over 360. And again, let's draw a quick picture so we can see what it looks like. We have our picture, and then we have a slice where we have our angle, our radius, and then instead of finding the area, what we're finding is this length, what the length of that circle. So like imagine this is like a pathway in a park or something, and you want to know what's the distance of this little arc that you're walking. There is something pretty important that I want you to write down that's just like a distinction between some vocab. So arc length is distance, which is circumference. So arc length is like the distance around here. Arc measure, which sounds similar, but it's not. Arc measure is the central angle of the arc. So it's a little confusing to know the difference, but once you get some practice with it, you'll see. I just remember that measure reminds me of like angle measure. So if I asked you like, what's the measure of this angle? That's typically going to be related to the angle. And arc length is an actual distance. So again, like the length of a football field, we think of distance. And so it's important to know the difference because when we're asking for length, we have to use this formula. When we're asking for measure, it's just the same as the angle. So if this was 30, the measure of this arc is also 30. So let's do an example. We want to find the length of arc FG. Sometimes arc is written out. Sometimes there's just this little like half circle above it. And we have our radius, which is 8 centimeters, and then FG is 134 degrees. And so what we're trying to find is the length of arc FG. So again, if we're walking along this path, how far have we walked? And so we are going to use our circumference formula, 2 pi r. Our r is 8. And then our angle measure, 134 over 360. So again, we can type this in exactly as it is. So 2 pi parentheses 8, 134 divided by 360 gives me 18.7. This is not area, so should not be squared. It's just 18.7 centimeters. So for both sector area and arc length, you're finding the portion of the circle area and the portion of the circumference. So you find the entire circumference or the entire area and multiply by the angle over 360.